Thank you all today for attending today's webinar on how to reduce IT burdens with managed application services. Today, we're really looking forward to talking to you all about our managed service products. We're going to cover a few things. We want to talk to you about what is managed application services, who's it right for, and what are next steps if you're interested in learning more. We'll also have about 10 minutes at the end of this for Q&A to make sure that we cover any topics that we don't touch on throughout the fireside chat. But if you have any questions along the way, feel free to hit the Q&A icon at the bottom of your screen, and we'll be happy to answer those in real time as well. Let me introduce you today to the Accela team who's joining me. So first joining me is Brenda DeGregory, who's Accela's Vice President of Delivery and the brain trust of this project, as well as Dave Evans, who's Accela's Director of Managed Application Services and runs it day to day. He'll be answering questions in real time in the Q&A and will be joining us at the end of the session. First, we wanted to start a little bit with a poll today to get some input from you. So it's a multiple choice poll, so feel free to choose as many of the choices as are applicable to you. And the question we're really asking today to start this off is, for what reasons are you considering Accela Expert to manage your instance? And a lot of these answers are driven really by what we've heard from you all, from our clients who are either on managed application services or who are very interested in it. And so understanding, what's your interest and what drives that helps us really make sure that we're tailoring both the program and our discussion day to what most interests you all. So we'll give it a minute or two and then we'll take a look at the results. Brenda, I'm very interested to see what leads us off here.
Yeah, all of the above, right?
That's oftentimes what we hear.
Mm-hmm.
All right, looks like we're getting some results in here. Oh, wait. A couple extras coming in. All right, well, very interesting. So leading us off, we want to get the most out of Accela. Not a big surprise there, at least for me. Certainly a place that we know as coming out of the pandemic, as you all are having a chance to really think about both consolidation of applications, as well as how you're making sure you're delivering the most services possible. We hear this often, I have these 5 things I want to consolidate. I have these other workflows I'd like to, go pursue. So not a surprise there. Followed up IT resource shortage. I mean, Brenda, I'd love to hear your thoughts, but certainly, especially when I sit down with CIOs, but I would say as well as department heads. I mean, I'm not sure there's a customer I talk to these days who isn't down multiple people and trying to make sure they're optimizing the time their team's spending on projects.
For sure.
Well, great. Okay, now appreciate everybody's input on the poll. It's helpful to make sure we're guiding the conversation the right way. So I guess, Brenda, first off, love to get your thoughts about, this is obviously a pretty new project for us and program, been around for about a year now with, multiple customers around the world, but what drove this, in your opinion?
Yeah, I mean, really, we're responding to our customers' requests. They're under a great deal of competing pressures right now. And one of those pressures is a pressure to innovate. So what we saw during the pandemic is that it sparked and accelerated digital innovation across all types of governments around the world. And so we saw citizens expecting this digital service during the pandemic, and now even more so. And so the challenge is, how do we scale this? How do we ensure that the governments remain as these trusted, agile, and resilient providers of the citizen service, delivering this value to the public? And so that pressure to innovate is present now, and it's not going to go away. It's just going to continue to evolve and change as customers have varying and evolving expectations. So competing with that pressure or compounding that pressure is the IT resource shortage. So in the poll, of course, that's up there and what you all are feeling. So that's across the marketplace, but especially felt within the government sector. A recent Gartner review found that across all different state, local, federal governments, they're all citing challenges, talent shortage as their biggest barrier to adopting emerging technologies and really achieving their strategic technology goals. So there's a few factors here that are driving this talent shortage. Sure, we've all seen it in the news, but there's a what termed the silver tsunami. There's 40% to 40% of government workers are actually eligible to retire now, and there's intense competition from the private sector, just because of the overall talent shortage. And so workers are looking for flexibility for remote work, and they want modern tools and technologies that enable them to perform their job functions efficiently. And in the face of these challenges, our customers' IT departments are, they're burdened with managing a number of applications, not just Excella. And so these strategic priorities within an agency really compete and make, force some difficult decisions in sort of balancing the limited resources. And so as we looked at how do we respond to the needs coming across from customers, and recognizing that Excella really is a powerful tool to drive and enable this innovation that is desired across the board. And especially around, we're seeing a continued push to consolidate from point solutions more towards a platform, enabling expansion and meeting these continuously changing needs across the enterprise. So we stood up this service to really help our customers get the most out of Excella amidst all these competing pressures.
No, that certainly resonates. I know I was speaking with a customer last week about this, and I think they boiled it down really nicely for me, which was they were down multiple people on their staff, both on the IT as well as the agency side, and the CIO, roughly his remarks were, I need my team and our agency focused on business outcomes and citizen services, not managing applications. And for me, that really resonated. And I was like, oh, that's a very simple way to think about, I think, the overall mission that we've really set out here. So that's great. So I guess, I think as you think about that, if I'm, especially for those of you who are newer to what managed application services is, maybe you can explain a little bit about what the offering is and how it works.
Sure. So we launched the program, in response to these specific asks coming from our customers. So how can we help them with the daily system administration of their Excella solution, troubleshooting problems and resolving them quickly as they come up, and then looking ahead towards continuous optimization and enhancing their configuration to meet these ever-changing needs and demands for innovation. So what's new here? I guess we've been helping our customers in these areas for years, right? But what they were also looking for is something, a service that would enable budget predictability and consistency. So we are offering this service as a subscription package. And so instead of needing, say, a service contract or an ad hoc statement of work to do a specific, scope, instead, this annual subscription package bundles together all these services and everything that our customers are asking for help with. So the day-to-day administration of their Excella solution. So that might mean, helping administer user accounts or the problem ticket resolution, as well as the forward-looking incremental enhancements and configuration changes with the objective of continuous service improvement and innovation. And so this really is what this package is set up to enable our customers to stay ahead of the emerging industry best practices, and as well as meeting those evolving needs for innovation and increased digital service delivery, and keeping pace also with new product features as Excella releases those.
Yeah, no, I think that the proactive nature of the offering, I think, is, for me at least, one of the most exciting parts. I think, oftentimes we get calls when something's gone wrong, or the budget's only allocated when there's a specific thing to be addressed. And I think that ongoing and proactive nature of this program is really something where, I feel like especially our early adopters in this are starting to see a lot of traction. And I think they're going to continue to see more, and it's going to compound for them, which, I think makes me very excited personally.
Yeah, agreed. We all fall into this. I think sometimes when the day-to-day kind of becomes overwhelming, you lose sight of the forward planning and really staying ahead of the curve. So that's a really important part of the service that we are already seeing a lot of dividends being realized.
Yeah, not losing sight of that important at the behest of the urgent is often difficult, especially in the environment we are in today. So certainly, I think an exciting part. So I guess along with that, as you think about, who is this right for? I think we've had a lot of discussions on probably not the perfect solution for everybody, depending on what their needs are. So tell us, who's the right fit for this, and how should they think about that?
Yes. So, I mean, it's really kind of runs the gamut, but overall, we're seeing a lot of customers raising their hands and saying, yes, I need this. And there's a few, I guess, key themes that commonalities where we see kind of driving this. So for instance, customers that are just in their initial implementation stage and are approaching a go live. As many of you know, getting ready for a go live is a huge effort in and of itself and requires a lot of resources and focus from an agency. And then what comes after go live also requires a lot of preparation. It requires you to onboard folks with certain skills and get them up the Accela learning curve in terms of how to do the system administration, how to write business rule automations, how do all the configuration consoles work. And so that can be quite an investment in time and in funds. And so what we're seeing is as customers approach their go lives, they're stepping back and saying, we have other strategic priorities that we want to make investments in. And if we can hand off the day-to-day, management, administration, optimization of our Accela solution, we're going to do that so that strategically makes sense for us. So that's one theme that we're seeing. Another theme is for customers who are moving from an on-prem install into the cloud, onto our SaaS service. That's kind of like a catalyzing event, right? They're taking this solution that they've been managing on their own infrastructure. We're going to move it to the SaaS service and we're going to be administering it in our cloud, right? And so, a nice sort of like additional layer there to just kind of take the whole thing off their plate is to add the managed application service into the mix, where again, it's really just about competing demands for resources and where agencies are able to repoint folks to maybe work on some longer term expansion or consolidation initiatives and leave the day-to-day optimization and keeping the lights on, so to speak, to Accela for what's already in production. And then the third is just sort of like, it's a catch-all, I guess, but it's customers are just feeling the resource crunch. They're in a continuous cycle of needing to respond to regulation changes, growth within their jurisdiction, and all of these things are competing for their time. And so it really just becomes a matter of, let's have the experts handle this for us, and then we can have our team really make progress on other strategic priorities.
No, I think especially those who I think have really taken it up on we know that, every year, every quarter, whatever it is, we're going to have regulation changes, things are going to evolve. Certainly a key point for them, as well as, I think it's really interesting to think about, if you step back and you talked about this earlier, as the world really moves from much more of kind of a waterfall, big bang approach, much more to an agile kind of, iterative approach. I think this is going to be a big boon as people think about making more incremental changes. So you don't have to have everything perfect at all times. That you're going to continue to evolve and continue to change. And this allows us to have an ongoing dialogue around what does that look like? What are best practices? How do we make sure that we're pushing, on the right places and getting the most value out of the system ultimately, which we saw from the earlier poll is, a big driver of value for those who have been interested so far.
Absolutely. I mean, the idea that you have any kind of technology solution that is static and doesn't, and that you're not, planning for that continuous change is just, it's not reality.
No, not in today's world. Too many expectations by too many stakeholders.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess as you think through that, so as those who have MAS in place now, as you think about, if I'm a person on this webinar and I'm thinking about, what does my world look like once I have this? What are some of the big benefits you've seen so far from the customers?
Well, so as customers come into the program, they immediately get kind of ushered in by Dave and his team. And there are three main areas of service that this dedicated team of named resources who you're going to know individually, and they know you and your solution deeply, three main areas of service that they're providing. Like I mentioned before, the daily system administration. So service requests, come in through a ticketing process. Problem tickets come in through that same process, and that team just handles it. They are off and running, and they take care of that. So the daily grind is relieved, and that's kind of a big drag on a lot of teams. The daily grind is real. And then the second piece is like we mentioned, the proactive solution optimization and continuous improvement. And so we accomplish that by coming in twice a year, and one of our senior architects will review your whole solution and put together a series of recommendations and lay that out on a roadmap. And so we take action on these recommendations through a quarterly cycle where we're pushing configuration enhancements and changes into your production environment. And so some of what is in that quarterly cycle of configuration enhancements could be things that were recommended on the roadmap that our architects found. It could be things coming from your business users or your external constituents, for maybe there's a process that would benefit from a change in the workflow or an optimization to an automation to just speed things along faster, or you've got a request for a new type of report. All of these things can be put on the backlog for the managed application services team to knock out and deploy in these once per quarter releases of enhancements. And so all of these services are delivered under a really robust service level agreement and framework. And there are regular standing meetings to define and prioritize the work. There are monthly service delivery reviews to confirm we're attaining the SLAs. And we look at the review with your leadership team, the progress that we're making on these quarterly releases of enhancements, and confirm that the priorities that are planned for the next cycles are indeed still in alignment with the agency's priorities. And so another benefit that our customers have as part of this service is that the team provides proactive planning for the managing the rolling service pack releases and the major releases. So we'll look at what's coming in. Are there some new features that you might want to take advantage of? Are there some areas where there's some functionality change that you'll want to focus your testing in this area to make sure that we don't have any service disruptions? And so we're seeing just a broad swath of benefits that our customers are realizing, and it's really been great.
That's awesome. So someone's interested. What are the next steps? How should they proceed from here?
Well, the first step is reach out to your account executive, and hopefully you know who that is. But the account executive will set up a discovery process where we'll do some due diligence to talk to you about your needs, the pace of change that you're seeing coming from your business users and from the community, and some of your other goals, and then we'll synthesize that together and put together a proposal for a managed application service package that matches your agency's specific needs.
Great. Well, this time, why don't I invite Dave Evans to join us in here? And I saw some questions starting to pop up in the chat, so we'll make sure we get to those right away. It looks like maybe we'll start with Chris. Is managed service dedicated to the jurisdiction, or is it a shared service? Yeah. Chris, maybe Dave, I'll let you answer that, but I think making sure we understand that you're saying, so I'll actually, Dave, I'll let you answer that because I'm sure you've gotten this question before. So,
okay. Yeah, I'll take a stab. So it depends on the size of the agency and how MOS is going to be used. With each agency, we kind of do a scoping exercise. And so, for a very large agency, you may have a named resource that is also fully dedicated. Often is the case for agencies, you'll have a named resource, meaning you'll work with the same people, but they may also have other assignments where they're working multiple accounts.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and part of that, Chris, and maybe this is part of your question is also there's a team that supports your named person. So you'll have a dedicated person who who you have their phone number of and you can call. But then there's a team around them that support it. So they'll be the ones who are really coordinating and think of them as, use sports terminology. They're the quarterback, but they're going to have plenty of, linemen and wide receivers supporting them and making sure that they get to all the different pieces and parts of that planning process. Glenn, what if agency needs an enhancement sooner than the next quarter release? I don't know, Dave, Brenna, I don't know if one of you want to take that.
Yeah, I can take that.
Go ahead, Dave.
Okay. Yeah, so Glenn, if there's an enhancement that's urgent and that we need to deploy outside of the quarterly release cycles, we absolutely can do that. So that's not an issue. With Mass Services, we meet bi-weekly. So every other week at minimum, we're on the phone with you. And through those, there's a lot of conversations on priority. We go through the backlog of all of the system enhancement requests that have been submitted, as well as any of your incident cases. We go through, give you an update on, which we've closed in that period or new ones that are open where we need to discuss requirements. So there's a lot of communication and pushing out an enhancement outside of the quarterly release cycle is no problem.
I think, Glenn, and I don't know if this is your question, we oftentimes will see that, there's certain windows where agencies need to do different things. We have a spike because we have a specific licensing type here, or there's a time where we see a big load of permits. So we need to make sure we get those in before those windows. And I think a big part of it, and why, mentioned earlier, a lot of the proactive part of that planning is actually to get ahead of those. So we make sure, say, historically, we've seen issues where someone will ask for something, but we don't necessarily have the account context of, hey, we know that, I don't know, we're doing fire permits and fire season's about to start for you and you're about to, get slammed. Let's make sure we get everything in and ready to go before that window hits. And so I think that level of planning and intimacy between the two parties is really important because you're able to make sure you understand those contexts at the agency or jurisdiction level.
Yeah, and what we see as customers come into the program and we start to get into the steady state and the cadence of quarterly releases is that there are less of those, oh my gosh, this thing urgently just cropped up. Usually, like Tom was alluding to, we have a line of sight to those things and we can proactively plan for them and schedule them and be kind of more process oriented and deliberative about how we approach releases into production.
Let me make sure. So thinking of the state of Florida and some of their legislative changes is being considered to make sure your rep has other agencies in the same stage. Certainly, I think this is a big part for us is to make sure that there's a coordinated fashion. And we're certainly seeing this in many places where there's a lot of both interrelated as well as interdependencies across agencies in different jurisdictions. So a big part of this we think is helping to coordinate some of those different places. I would even say, as more so helping to make some of those ties together, even above sort of the legislative level, where there's workflows that we see where one agency is working on something and may or may not have actually even talked to the other agency. And so starting to help coordinate across some of that is a big place where we can start to see where there could be fallovers in both the process as well as the application. All right, we're about to run up to time. Can we help answer any further questions before we wrap up today? Well, appreciate that, Glenna. Thank you so much. With that, unless there's any other questions, we'll wrap it up and appreciate that everybody joined us today and looking forward to having further discussions. If there's any questions we can answer going forward, feel free to reach out to any of us or your account executive. And we're looking forward to furthering those conversations. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thanks.